the Jim and Terry Show, broadcasting, podcasting, talking into a mic from the basement, the Hobbit Hole studio in Bob Cajun without, this time, my good friend, Jim. And that's because a family visit interfered with our usual get-together. So we're looking forward to this coming week with the Jim and Terry Show with two of us. In the meantime, lots of stuff hitting the fan, and most of it has to do with the Trump wrecking ball in the United States with a spillover effect from tariffs coming into Canada. And I just want to offer a perspective on all of that stuff, since Jim and I would have carried on our conversation and our banter over breakfast, a fresh pot of coffee, and chinwagged about the comings and goings, mostly comings and goings of on-again, off-again tariffs. We're going to tariff 25%. No, we're going to pause it. No, we're going to pause it for 30 days. No, it's back on. And no, it's not all the way back on, just some of it back on. The result of all this stuff is much like I have likened the Trump presidency to coming home to an alcoholic parent. You never know what you're going to get when you open the front door. And that's what it's like with Trump. And that instability has ripple effects. There are books written about the children of alcoholics and the toll it takes on personality and maladaptive behaviors. And the uncertainty has a great toll to take. And for trading partners in a global economy, the uncertainty is devastating. And there will be a good side to this, and there will be a not-so-good side. Let's take a look at Ontario and our own Conservative Premier, Doug Ford, who just won a majority with a minority. What do I mean? Doug Ford continues to rack up 55% of eligible voters did not show up at the polls, and he won a majority of seats, though a smaller majority, with a minority of eligible voters casting a ballot for the Conservatives. And this is why I always argue with my good friend Jim about voter and election reform. We need to change things up. No longer first past the post. We need a system, and I've argued for Fair Vote Canada and their propositions. They have a number of models that would be nice to see anyone. But let's take the model that I just participated in, since I am now, for the first time in my life, a card-carrying liberal. You knew I was left of center anyway, but to make it count, with a liberal leadership coming down, I decided to join the party and cast a vote. And it is a ranked ballot, because there are multiple candidates on the leadership ballot. Why can't we do this for elections, provincial, municipal, federal? Why can't we rank the ballots? If our number one doesn't get enough to get in, how about our number two? Is there enough to get that person over the line? With the goal that anybody who wins must win with more than 50% of the electorate. No more 17% of the eligible voters draw a majority number of seats for the provincial legislation, or it could be a federal election that goes that way too. So the ridings must have a representative that most of the electorate is comfortable with, and ranked ballot is just one of those things. So in the Liberal leadership, we have Carney, Freeland, we have Frank Baylis, we have Karina Gould, and you get to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, and you choose which one on what strengths. There was a debate, French and English, and I watched mainly the English one, although I tuned in and got snippets and translations of the French one. It's important that you know, that you participate. Democracy is such a frail thing, and if we don't all raise the flag and become, active participants. It's a participation sport. You can't sit on the sidelines and cheer. Democracy is about doing. It's participation. And so, with the learning from the leadership race for the Liberals, I'm hoping that we can use electoral reform in Canada for the federal and perhaps the next provincial election. Change it up. First past the post is not the best one when so many people do not vote. So to make the best of a bad situation, well, maybe we could do what some other countries in Europe are doing. Force people, if they want your driver's license, you have to demonstrate that you voted in your municipal, your provincial, or your federal government. You voted. Prove it. And you get your license renewed, or you get some other service, provided you cannot renew your license, or you cannot do until you make it either punitive or incentivize it, but somehow get people off the sidelines, whatever that model is that they're going to use. So electoral reform, my first bugaboo. We will see what the leadership race does for the Liberal Party. And I would refer to 338, which is a polling service, and I think it's federal polling from March 2nd to March 5th. And if you take a look at that, and I can post a link to 338 and the latest election results, you see a great separation for the past 2 years of, it goes almost up to 30 points between the Liberals and the Conservatives. But in the last, ever since Trump, so that's January, you start to see the gap close. While the Conservative decline is not quite as steep, the Liberal incline is meteoric. It's like going up a cliff face, whereas the Conservatives are sinking slowly into the sunset. The difference this week, this is the week of March 2nd to 5th, is, Liberals look like they're ahead, 39 to 33, a 6-point spread, if voter intention was measured that day. Other losers in this whole thing, the NDP are down to 14. Bloc Québécois is down. The Green Party is, about the same. So where are the people going to? They're going from the Conservatives to the Liberals, from the NDP, apparently to the Liberals. So that explains the numbers come from both the orange color of the NDP and the blue from the PC seem to be moving and charging the red of the Liberals. Anyway, that's federal polling showing that the gap is significantly shifted, and as of this week, if the election were held, it would be a Liberal victory. Whether that holds to an election, who knows? Polling is just polling. It is not a guarantee of anything. But it's interesting to me to see this phenomenon happen in real time. So what's the cause of it? The driver is the uncertainty. The driver is Trump. And Pierre Poilievre has an image problem, which it might be worth taking a little look at, because when polling is going about leadership, and this is from Polling Canada, how many support Pierre Poilievre? Or let's take the first question. Who do you support who can manage Trump and the tariffs best? The Liberal Party is 41, CPC 36, NDP 13, and it goes down from there. So that looks like, most people trust the Liberals to do that. But then when you go into who would most likely roll over and do whatever Trump demands, 31% said Poilievre will roll over at the drop of a hat. Trudeau was 10% less than that. Singh seemed to be one of the stronger candidates, and Carney and most have greatest confidence in Freeland. Now, Freeland was the great negotiator in USMCA, which is NAFTA 2.0. She was the one face-to-face with Trump, and Trump does not like her, so most Canadians feel that Freeland would do the best. But Carney's right there with her. Most people having confidence that they will never roll over to Trump. So that's worth looking at. Leadership is the most important thing. There are other ways that the question was phrased. Do you feel that X, and you fill in the blank with the leader of your choice, would, and they phrased it two ways, do what Trump demands or strongly oppose. Poilievre only had, 20 some odd percent, which is about the size I've always figured of his base. Those people who support the convoy to Ottawa, who've got into all kinds of shenanigans at the borders, who are the F. Trudeau crowd, that portion is probably somewhere around 25% of the Canadian public. And to justify that, I'm going back to those numbers who supported the federal government's intervention in the Ottawa occupation. And that was more than 70% of the population supported Trudeau's action and did not support the occupation of Ottawa. So that all still figures. That's been true then for years now, since 2022, 2023, 2024. And here we are partially into 2025, and those numbers seem to be what I would call Poilievre's ceiling. He's got a base that's consistency right there. Maybe that's a floor. He will always draw that crowd. Carney is, most people, nearly half of Canadians feel that he will strongly oppose Trump's demands. And very few, about 17%, said, well, any Canadian politician is going to kowtow to Trump eventually. So it's a good question about leadership, and it means something when most Canadians say, well, guess what? We don't trust Pierre Poilievre to do anything. He's known, well, there is a slang term, Maple MAGA is for those people who, like the convoy people, are MAGA in orientation, what they believe about the size of government, about corruption in the government, about not trusting institutions, not trusting politicians. Well, Pierre Poilievre is deemed by Trump to be MAGA North. And so it's hard for Pierre Poilievre to reclaim an image of being for the people, by the people, as much as he tries. And he just gave a speech, but I would say it was a miserable attempt to try to convince people that he's changed his spots. Not likely. Looking forward to the results of the Liberal election. I voted. I won't tell you who I voted for. Let's just say I reread Mark Carney's values, and I like what he's saying. Jim and Terry Show, off for the weekend. Do take care. We'll talk to you on the flip side, seeing what happens. Bye-bye for now.